If you see a semi-truck pass by, sure, it's probably just a truck, but to any kid who plays with action figures, it might just be a robot in disguise. This is the mythology of Transformers. Transformers is the most enduring of all the toy lines, with multiple iterations, dozens of cartoons, video games, comic books, and too many movies. As a result, the mythology is constantly evolving, and attempting to discuss all of the various versions would be basically impossible. For the purpose of this video, we will attempt to delineate the most significant timeline, and this would be what is called the aligned continuity, an attempt by Hasbro to unify the many different storylines into one. This is essentially what is considered canon, for now anyway. And while the aligned continuity eventually was semi-abandoned and remains unfinished, it can be seen as, in my opinion, the best guidebook that exists to bring the many different stories into one unified timeline. You can find what is called the Binder of Revelation on archive.org for free. I'll put a link in the description. We'll also focus on the original run of the comic and cartoon, but the ultimate source material, as always, will be the toys themselves. I'll put links to my research in the description, thanks to the Transformers Wiki, which was the main source of my research. As with all action figure mythologies, there are many creators. The Transformers began as two separate toy lines created by Takara Tomy. The first, Diaclone, involved vehicles that transformed into robots. The second, Microchange, focused on everyday items like tape players, watches, Walther P-38 handguns, etc. The Transformers mecha were largely designed by Shoji Kawamori, the creator of the Japanese mecha anime franchise Macross. Hasbro purchased the rights to produce new versions of Takara Tomy's toys, but Hasbro had a tried and true marketing strategy by this point, perfected by the launch of G.I. Joe. The toy line would be amplified by a comic book produced by Marvel and a cartoon co-produced by Marvel and Sunbow Animation, the animation studio run by the Griffin Bacall ad agency, and the animation would be done by Toei Animation. There was also a Marvel comic book that ran for 80 issues, and a UK version that ran at the same time. The main writers of the comic book were Bob Budiansky and Simon Furman. While the cartoon took a different approach, using several writers, including Dick Robbins, Bryce Malek, Marv Wolfman, and some names you might remember from previous mythology videos, Flint Dille, Buzz Dixon, and Steve Gerber. File cards were included on the packages. They were written by Bob Budiansky, who can be seen as the father of the mythology. He created the characters and the outline that would become the basis for the comic book and the cartoon, and the War of the Transformers has begun. A massive ark filled with sentient robotic life forms crash lands on Earth, where it stays stagnant, sleeping for 4 million years until it is unearthed in 1984. The beings aboard the ship are Cybertronian Transformers, robots capable of changing their physical form. They awaken and disguise themselves as mechanical objects modeled after objects from the planet they are hiding in, Earth. Their goal: find a new source of energy to create Energon, the power source that fuels their life force, and bring it back to their dying home planet, Cybertron, to bring it back to life. They stumble upon two humans, a father and son, Sparkplug and Spike Witwicky, or sometimes known as Buster, who aid them on their quest to find a way home and protect the planet from the evil Decepticons. This is the story you most likely remember from the cartoon and the comic book, but where did these Transformers come from? How were they created? And what are they fighting for? For answers to these questions, we have to go back to the beginning, to the origins of Primus and Unicron. The prehistory of Cybertron has been laid out in great detail in a document called the Binder of Revelation. It is essentially the Transformers Bible. The Binder of Revelation tells the story of the birth of the universe. In the beginning, an omnipotent entity wandered the galaxy for thousands of years until it became lonely. It has no name, as a being that is completely alone does not need a name. It is all there is. It eventually discovered other civilizations, other planets where sentient life exists. This revelation makes the entity lonely. It divides itself into two separate personas, Primus and Unicron. Primus was hopeful, while Unicron was relentlessly seeking change, unsatisfied. The two voices found themselves at odds, and eventually they divided into separate entities, giving themselves physical form by attaching to floating debris and forming two metal, planet-like orbs. Unicron became the dominant persona. He saw life as pointless and worthy of destruction. He began devouring worlds, his end goal to put an end to all life in the universe. But Primus saw the beauty in life and fought to save it. Primus and Unicron enter into an endless struggle, with neither one capable of getting the upper hand, until Primus created the 13 Primes. The 13 Primes are beings of great power. They are in a way the gods of Transformers. Each Prime owns an artifact of power that has played a role in the history of Transformers lore. Some say the 13 Primes are just simply legends and never truly existed, but others know the truth. The 13 Primes are Prima, the leader of the 13, Vector Prime, the master of time and space, Alpha Trion, the record keeper of the Primes, Solus Prime, creator of many of the Prime's weapons through the use of her incredible forge. She was the first female Cybertronian. Micronus Prime, who is the conscience of the 13 and responsible for creating the alternate dimension of microspace. Alchemist Prime, student of the elemental structure of the natural world. Nexus Prime, the first and greatest combiner. Onyx Prime, the first beast form Cybertronian. Amalgamus Prime, who is the first Cybertronian with the ability to transform, granted him by his transformation cog, which became the basis for the cogs in all subsequent Transformer life. Quintus Prime, a scientist. Liege Maximo, the Prime of Lies, a black-hearted and amoral manipulator known for his ability to talk. And Megatronus, guardian of entropy and wielder of the Requiem Blaster. Megatronus earns his nickname the Fallen, the first Decepticon, when he betrays his fellow Primes and kills his lover, Solus Prime. After killing her, Megatronus exiles himself to the far reaches of outer space, never to return again, or, well, maybe never. The 13th Prime is the last and most mysterious of the 13, and we'll come back to him. The Primes battled against Unicron and finally defeated him, sending him into a black hole where he was banished. Primus evolved into the basis for the planet Cybertron. At the center of Cybertron is Vector Sigma, a supercomputer that is the link between Primus and the Cybertronians.
I am Vector Sigma. Before Cybertron was, I was.
He appears as a glowing sphere and is a recurring character in most of the media. Vector Sigma scanned the universe and used his findings to create the beings that would become Cybertronians. The 13 Primes then entered into what is called the Well of Allsparks and created Cybertronian life. Primus placed a part of his consciousness in the Matrix of Leadership. He uses this powerful device to decide who will lead Cybertron, and thus Cybertronian life has begun. In the beginning, the first Cybertronians lived in primitive villages and lived in constant fear of the Predacons, ancient dragon-like monsters. The Primes warred to save the Cybertronians from the Predacons until an extinction event caused the destruction of most life on Cybertron. A passing red star interfered with the Cybertronian sun, causing a barrage of asteroids to strike Cybertron, and solar flares burned the surface with radiation, making it uninhabitable. Tribes of Cybertronians hid underground while the cataclysm wiped out the Predacons, which allowed the Cybertronians to tame the wilderness and build civilization. Over the centuries, Cybertron develops into a glorious planet full of gleaming cities, but as all civilizations rise, so do they fall. An alien race appears to the Cybertronians. They are the Quintessons. They begin as benevolent creatures and teach the Cybertronians how to use their Transformer cogs, fooling the Cybertronians into believing that they taught them how to do this, but the truth is the Cybertronians had it in them all along. The Quintessons' kindness was simply a ruse, and the Quintessons enslaved the Transformers and instill a caste system. The Cybertronians rise and overthrow the Quintessons and instill their own government, but the caste system created by the Quintessons remains in place. Within the caste system, Cybertronians are assigned at birth to a fate they cannot change. Some are born to lead, others are born to serve, and others are so low they are not even given names. Society reaches a level of decadence in which those who live at the highest levels become unaware of the world beneath them. Sound familiar? Corruption in the government leads to dissatisfaction and rebellion. An underground gladiator ring flourishes, and an unbeatable warrior rises out of the pits, dominating the competition. He is told by his organized crime bosses to throw a match, but he refuses, and instead takes over, wiping out his bosses and taking charge. He takes the name of the fallen Megatronus. It is a common heel tactic from pro wrestling. Take the name of the devil to scare your opponents. He begins to rebel against the caste system, making rousing speeches arguing for an overthrow of the current status quo. At the same time, a data clerk named Orion Pax is assigned to listen in on Megatron's speeches. He becomes enthralled with Megatron, and similarly believes the caste system must be destroyed. But he believes in doing it through peaceful means. He befriends Megatron and joins the cause, but when they go before the Senate to plead their case, the Senate is so moved by Orion Pax's speech, they make him the new Prime. Megatron sees this as the ultimate betrayal and unleashes war against his former friend, and the war for Cybertron has begun. The war rages on, with the Decepticons virtually destroying Cybertron in their attempts to take over. In a desperate attempt to thwart Megatron, the Autobots launch the Allspark into outer space to keep it out of Decepticon hands. Megatron unleashes the power of Dark Energon. It is the very blood of Unicron himself. The Dark Energon infects Cybertron, threatening to destroy it and making it all but uninhabitable. Megatron wishes to starve his enemies. Without Energon, the Cybertronians will not be able to survive, and Cybertron will rot away. Optimus and the Autobots stop the destruction of Cybertron, but it is too late. Cybertron is no longer capable of producing the Energon needed to sustain life. Optimus and the Autobots build an Ark, a massive spaceship capable of intergalactic travel, and begin their exodus. Their mission: to retrieve the Allspark and restore life to Cybertron, and find a second source of Energon. The Ark leads the way. Many of the other ships are destroyed, but the Ark escapes, pursued by the Decepticons, until they crash land on Earth. When the two forces awaken millions of years later, the war continues on our planet. The Autobots are the heroic robots in the Transformer universe. The name is derived from the meaning autonomous robot. It is a rejection of the caste system that caused the fall of Cybertron and affirms that all Cybertronians should be autonomous. You thought it was because they were cars. Nope. The symbol is the face of the Autobot Prowl, but in the lore, it is a symbol used by the Cybertronian government before the Great War. In other continuities, the symbol is the face of the last Autobot, a long-gone ancient guardian created by Primus to guard Cybertron. The leader of the Autobots is Optimus Prime. Originally created as a Diaclone toy, he was originally named Battle Convoy. Voiced by Peter Cullen, he is the Abraham Lincoln of the Transformers, an inspiring and powerful leader and warrior. Held within Optimus's chest is the Matrix of Leadership, a powerful totem that can be passed on to others, giving them the power to lead. It is later revealed that Optimus is the 13th Prime. When the 13 Primes entered the Well of Allsparks to create the first Transformers, Prime decided he needed to understand the plight of this new race they had just created. He willingly allowed his memory to be erased and went to work as a data clerk under the name Orion Pax. This left Orion with a sense of dissatisfaction that pushed him to search for more. When he gained the Matrix of Leadership, he was fulfilling a prophecy from long ago. Optimus has many companions to help him in his battle to save Cybertron and protect Earth from the Decepticons. Bumblebee is his faithful companion. He lost his voice box in the battle for Cybertron. His small size makes him the perfect spy. In the comic book, it is Bumblebee that connects the Autobots with the humans when the Wikis discover him, believing he is simply a car in need of repair. RC is the most prominent female Transformer. At one point, she was the only one. In earlier continuities, she was created as an experiment to introduce gender into Transformer life, but the most recent versions have confirmed that there are other female Cybertronians. Jazz is Optimus Prime's right-hand man. Voiced by the great Scatman Crothers, he has the ability to flash lights to disorient his enemies. Ratchet is the Autobot medic and chief medical officer. The Dinobots, led by Grimlock, are primitive-minded Transformers that take the form of dinosaurs, and there are many more Autobots, too many to list in one video, as the Transformers has constantly updated and changed throughout its 40-plus years. They are the Headmasters, who give humans mech suits that can transform into the head of giant Transformer mechs, and the Pretenders that allow Transformers to disguise themselves as humans. Apparently, humans at Comic-Con. The Decepticons take their name from the first Decepticon, Megatronus the Fallen, who called himself Decepticon after betraying his kind and killing his lover, Solus Prime. They began as a rebellious faction led by the gladiator Megatron. The choice of the name can be explained by this quote: "Sometimes deception is necessary when those who should listen to the truth will not, and will only understand once they have been lied to and forced to see their own lies." The Autobot and Decepticon symbols were designed by Wayne Molinaire. The Decepticon symbol is the face of Soundwave. Megatron is the leader of the Decepticons, voiced by Frank Welker, the voice of Scooby-Doo, as well as many other cartoons in the 80s and beyond. Megatron originated as part of the Microchange line. His original form was a Walther P-38 pistol, marketed as the pistol used in the TV show The Man from U.N.C.L.E. When in pistol form, he can shrink down to be held by a human or another Transformer. Megatron has many forms, mostly as a result of legislation banning the production of realistic-looking guns for kids to play with. His most common secondary form is of a gray tank. He is a ruthless and brutal leader, loathed by many of his underlings, who are constantly trying to usurp his power. He is hated so much when he is mortally wounded in the 1986 movie, instead of repairing him, they toss his damaged body into outer space, where he is taken in by the Chaosbringer Unicron and transformed into the more powerful Galvatron. Starscream is the second in command and a member of the Seekers. He is always plotting to take over power. He is voiced by Chris Latta, the voice of Cobra Commander. Soundwave is Megatron's loyal servant. As a microchange figure, he was called Cassette Man. He can eject a series of smaller Transformers from his chest. He is the Decepticon spy and espionage expert. He can read computer and radio frequencies, allowing him to read other Transformers' minds. Shockwave is the mad scientist of the Decepticons. He is a cold, calculating warrior. In his search for science, he unearthed the dark Energon that poisoned Cybertron. The Constructicons are a gang of 6 Decepticons that combine to form the monstrous Devastator. In addition, the Decepticons employ many different factions: Seekers, Predacons, Insecticons, and more in the war to take the resources of Earth. How the Transformers transform. Transformers all have a Transformer cog, or T-cog, that is the core of their ability to transform. They first must scan a vehicle or object they wish to transform into. All Transformers are born with this ability to transform. This ability originates with one of the 13 primes, Amalgamus Prime, a prime who was capable of changing his body into any form. When the 13 primes created the Well of Allsparks, Amalgamus submitted a copy of this ability, and now all Transformers are born with a T-cog that contains a limited version of Amalgamus's power. They are born with an inherent second form. This is why, although they may change their mode to match the surroundings of the world they are in, for instance, Optimus appears on Earth as a Freightliner FL-86 semi-truck, his true form is a land-roving vehicle similar in shape and color. He can turn into infinite variations of this true form, but he can't just turn into anything he wants. Some Transformers seem to have multiple forms, and others seem to be able to learn new forms, but the process is difficult. It is not an unlimited power. They sometimes possess the ability to holographically project the appearance of a driver, otherwise they would all appear as self-driving cars, which did not exist until very recently. Transformers are made by living metal fused with the essence of the All-Spark. They may repair their bodies by using found parts. Once the new metal is incorporated into their form, it takes on this living quality and becomes part of their body. Transformers are nearly immortal, but certain parts cannot be replaced or fixed. For example, Bumblebee's voice box is a part that he cannot replace. If a Transformer sustains enough damage, it may go into stasis lock, which can protect it from dying and give it time to heal or be repaired. But a Transformer can be killed. This is something that horrified children and their mothers found out in 1986 when Optimus Prime was destroyed. Although their bodies are mutable and can be reformed with spare parts, each Transformer has a spark, which is essentially a Transformer's soul. If the spark is snuffed out, the Transformer has died. New Transformers are born by infusion of the All-Spark. This is something done by the computer Vector Sigma in the center of Cybertron. However, there are instances of Transformers being created off-planet. Transformers begin life in a protoform, a free-flowing living metal, until it begins to mature into its form as a Transformer. Transformers are powered by Energon, a source of pure energy. Considered the essence of Primus, it is the substance that fuels the Transformers, powers their weapons, and gives life to Cybertron. Stores of raw Energon exist all over the galaxy. In its raw form, it is unstable and dangerous and must be processed. It is the search for Energon that fuels much of the story of Transformers. Dark Energon is the blood of Unicron himself.
The solidified form of the matter the ancient texts refer to as the blood of Unicron. Unicron the Destroyer.
It is a rare but dangerous substance that gives incredible power to those who use it, but can also be an addictive, corrupting force. It is the use of Dark Energon that corrupts the core of Cybertron, causing it to no longer be able to sustain life on the planet. Dark Energon has the ability to reanimate dead Transformers, turning them into Terrorcon zombie forms. Not every Transformer assumes a robotic form, some form into beasts. The origin of the Beastial Transformers lies with one of the 13 Primes, Onyx Prime, a centaur-like creature that possessed the ability to see through time and space, and pattern races of Transformer creatures based on the animals of faraway worlds. The Autobots and Decepticons are not the only players in this intergalactic war. There are other factions, like the Quintessons, which we mentioned before. Late in the cartoon, the Quintessons return. They are an alien race of evil, cowardly aliens run by 5-faced, floating-headed monsters called Judges. The Quintessons enslaved the Cybertronian race early on in Cybertron history and used them as weapons of war, but an uprising toppled the Quintesson army and freed Cybertron. The cartoon mythology named the Quintessons as the original creators of the Transformers, but this is no longer canon. Quintessons are weak and cowardly and rely on control over armies of Sharkticons to do their fighting for them. They often return to attempt to take control over the Cybertronian race. Humans often interact with the Transformers as companions, friends, and enemies. Humans have always been a part of the story, as what use is it to disguise yourself as an Earth vehicle if you aren't around humans? The most prominent humans would be the father and son duo, Sparkplug and Spike Witwicky. In the comic book, it is Sparkplug and Buster Witwicky. Eventually, Spike grows up and has a child of his own and enters the Earth Defense Command, a force of human warriors that works with the Autobots to protect the universe against the Decepticons and other threats. The Predacons. The Predacons are giant dragon-like creatures from the prehistory of Cybertron that were wiped out by the Great Cataclysm. In the animated show Prime, which is a major part of the aligned timeline, the Decepticon scientist Shockwave clones the Predacons to resurrect them to use against the Autobots, but the Predacon leader, Predaking, rebels, seeking power for himself. Unicron. Unicron, the Chaos Bringer, has returned multiple times to take many forms and pursue his goal of devouring the galaxy. Emerging from his exile, Unicron eventually finds his way to our universe, where the Transformers must battle him to save him from devouring all life. This is the plot of the 1986 movie, but Unicron has returned again and again in comic books, in novels, and in HasLabs. There are many other versions of the Transformers story, from Beast Wars to Rescue Bots to some that are best left unmentioned, and the story continues to evolve. The goal here was to give the viewer what you need to know in under a half hour. If you want a deeper dive, check out Christopher McFeely's channel, and he'll take you down a rabbit hole of every aspect of Transformers lore imaginable. Or you can spend days on the Transformers Wiki like I did. If you like this video, subscribe for more mythologies of action figure lore, or check out my video on the mythology of G.I. Joe.